Hello, Audit the Vote PA. This is Tony Shoup putting this video together to help everybody on our website understand what the county data is that you're looking at on the data tab of our website. We have put together graphics for all 67 counties, detailing out some of the most unexplained and egregious, what we believe are egregious anomalies from the 2020 election to empower the people on the ground who are trying to get involved in their local community, whether that's at a Republican committee meeting of some sort, a county commissioner meeting, whatever it is that you're trying to do in your backyard. We want to give you what you need to be effective and communicate exactly what happened on the county level to your elected officials so that we can continue to try to get to the bottom of what happened in 2020. I'm going to screen share and go through the graphics. I'll go through just a couple of the graphics, but I'm going to break down each of the bullet points so that you can understand numbers wise exactly what you're looking at. One of the things that Karen, Jamie, and I are realizing, the longer this kind of gets dragged out and the more in the weeds that we're getting, is we realize after 10 months of us kind of sleeping and breathing election data, when we talk about this to people, we have a tendency to just let it roll off our tongue and not even really think about it, realizing that the person sitting across from us hasn't seen this data, hasn't been living in it, and really has no idea what it is they're looking at. So that's the purpose of this, is try to explain that to eliminate confusion. So let me try to start by sharing my screen. Let's see. Love to be able to see this as it's going. Share. We are going to look, the first county graphic we're going to look at is Butler County. If I go back to, I can see it. Look at that. Sweet. Can I move it? Nope. All right. So hopefully you can see that pretty well. Maybe I should, can I move that to make it more in focus? Full screen layout. Oh, yay. Okay, good. All right. So what you are looking at is hopefully a zoomed in version of Butler County. Can I zoom in on there? No. What did that do? Oh, it zoomed in for you a little bit. All right. So if you could just go to auditthevotepA.com and you click on the data tab, all 67 counties pop up. You click on your county. This is actually Butler. You're going to see bullet points. The very first one and the very last one are going to be the two that are most, we believe anyway, most, whatever you want to call it, impactful, disturbing, definitely need a deeper dive, and we'll talk through why. But first of all, that very first number is called a backfilled voter. Our SURE system, you'll see in Butler County, there's 6,032 voters backfilled into the SURE system. The SURE system is Pennsylvania's electronic voter roll system, essentially. We are finding out as we meet with more people that there are individual computers on the county level that are only accessible by certain people in the county courthouse. And these computer systems are designed and built actually specifically for the SURE system. This is their attempt to make it as secure as possible. The disturbing part is, however, that 100 plus third-party organizations have access to our voter roll database on the front and the back end to register voters or to take people out or to change things. They have access to that. Meanwhile, on the county level, they're making the county people think things are super secure because there's only like 3 or 4 people that can get access to these specific machines in our database. We're finding, however, something is going on behind the curtain because our SURE system seems to be the root of the issues from the Pennsylvania 2020 election. In this case, the reason why we call it a backfilled voter is because there were over 6,000 people in Butler County who have a recorded vote in the 2020 election. They also have an original voter registration date as being way prior to 2020. I'll give you an example. I am somebody that could show up on that list because I originally registered to vote. I think it was George Bush Jr. was the first president I voted for, and that was like around 2000-ish. So my original voter registration date is somewhere around the year 2000, meaning if you pulled a voter roll list anytime after the year 2000 in any month of any year, I should show up on that list, right? Well, that number means that over 6,000 people in Butler County who voted in the 2020 election with registration dates prior to 2020, way prior, don't show up on voter rolls that were pulled in 2020 in April, May, and June. This is a tough one sometimes for people to wrap their brain around, but think about that for a second. Where did they go? How the heck were they able to cast a ballot, but they didn't show up on the voter rolls in April, May, or June, but they'd supposedly been a registered voter for a really long time? That is the one anomaly that we have not had a legitimate answer from any of our elected officials, whether it's House of Representatives, even though they had tons of hearings and meetings back in February and March of 2021. Any of our county commissioners, county clerks, board of elections people, no one has been able to give us an explanation for that number in any of our 67 counties. And what's more disturbing is that statewide, that number is actually over 70,000. And if you're following Pennsylvania closely at all, you remember that Joe Biden was awarded the state by just over 80,000 votes. We're getting dangerously close to election affecting numbers. So that's the backfill. That's what it means, backfilled. The reason why we call it backfilled is because it kind of looks like those people were injected into the system, voted, and then taken out or somehow hidden so that somebody could potentially control the election. Backfilled voter, very important. The second one down is 2,165 duplicate registrations. A duplicate registration is exactly what it sounds like. It means that there are 2,165 voters in Butler County who are listed more than once in our voter roll database, therefore could have cast more than one ballot in the 2020 election. Now, we don't know if they did, but again, that's another reason why we need to do an investigation and a deep dive to figure that out, because no one is supposed to be able to register twice in our system. However, people are showing up twice with the same name, the same date of birth, and the same address. Got to figure that out. 18,695 first-time voters, not necessarily an alarming figure for any of the counties, but it just shows you that we did have an awful lot of first-time voters, whether they are registered for the first time in 2020 or perhaps they registered ages ago and just never really voted. That's just a number that we have on all of our graphics that you can compare as you go through the counties. 845 inactive voters. This is kind of an interesting number. An inactive voter is someone who has not voted in 2 consecutive presidential elections. So Pennsylvania kind of has this interesting phenomenon where nobody ever leaves the voter rolls. We're not really sure why, but essentially, even if you move out of state or you die, technically somehow you are always available in our sure voter roll database, which is an issue. So 845 people in Butler County are inactive but still remain on the voter rolls. Something that definitely needs a deeper dive. Why is that the case? And here's another question, how do you become reactivated? So how do you go from that inactive status? We know if you don't vote for 2 consecutive presidential elections, the system is supposed to automatically kick you to inactive. But how do you get active again? Because we're noticing an awful lot of movement in statuses like that in different counties all across the state, particularly in the 2020 election, where inactive voters either voted while they were inactive or activated, voted, and then went back to an inactive status. A lot of very strange things happening with that. So note for that. 105 mail-in ballots were recorded, but do not have any voter ID in the SURE system. What does that mean? Well, when our legislator passed Act 77, the lovely Act 77 that gave us the no excuse mail-in ballots, one of the safeguards that they put in place to try to deter people from cheating is that when you request a mail-in ballot, you have to file an application first with your voter registration information. When you apply for that mail-in ballot, you get an ID, a specific ID number that is unique to you in our SURE database, goes on that mail-in ballot so that they can supposedly track that actual ballot to you as the registered legitimate voter. However, in 2020, Butler County specifically, 105 mail-in ballots were counted in the 2020 election, somehow don't have that voter ID in the SURE system attached to the ballot, meaning we can't assign it to somebody. We don't know where it came from. Again, no answers for that either. 1,067 mail-in ballots counted that were received after November 3rd. Really like this stat too, because former Secretary of State Kathy Boockvar has said that only 10,000 mail-in ballots were actually received after November 3rd. They were supposedly all segregated and nothing was counted that came in after 8 p.m. on election day, even though they fought for months prior to that to allow the election to be extended for several days. Folks, why do you think that is? That we have to, do you really think it's because we can't count the votes? I don't think so. It's so whatever side wants to steal it can take a look and see what do we got to come up with, and oh, we got some extra days to do it. Yeah, let's leave that out there. I don't think so. 1,067 mail-in ballots counted received after November 3rd, according to the State Department website. Now, they might now say that that's been debunked or whatever the case is. We have the receipts for all of this. This is State Department data that we know exactly where it came from at some point in time. These are the numbers that they were putting out. Nothing has been investigated since then to show us maybe why they are not the same today as they were when we pulled this information. Let's do an investigation, shall we? Nothing to hide, should have no problem. 640 mail-in ballots recorded that were sent out of state. Statewide, that number is 17,000. The reason why I think that's a little alarming is because we were in the middle of a pandemic where nobody was traveling. Schools were cyber learning. So in a lot of cases, students were home. People weren't going anywhere. Yet statewide, we had 17,000 people request a no excuse mail-in ballot, and it was sent out of the state of Pennsylvania. Now, I myself participated in a small canvassing effort for about 200 ballots that were sent to New York City mailing addresses from registered voters in Pennsylvania. Jamie and I knocked on 7 doors, and all 7 doors were fraudulent ballots, meaning, or highly questionable, I shouldn't say fraudulent, meaning the person that cast the ballot didn't live at that address anymore, didn't live there in 2020, or the apartment was empty, or the people told us that was the previous tenant and they hadn't been there in 2 years. So every door that we knocked on was a very suspicious, in some cases provable fraudulent ballot of those 200 that were sent to the New York City addresses. 17,000 statewide, 640 of them in Butler County alone. The last number on there, 588 registrations were removed from the voter rolls between the week of the election and February 1st of 2021. Another alarming figure, in some counties way higher than others. Butler County is not all that alarming. I'm going to switch over to a couple other counties though and show you where it is alarming. Westmoreland, for example, which is just south of me, is over 9,000. They had over 9,000 people removed from their voter rolls between the week of the election and February 1st. More alarming than that, though, is statewide, we had over 300,000 of those. Now, when the margin of victory is 80,000 and you lost over 300,000 voters between the week of the election and February 1st, 2021, where all of that stuff could have been looked at, checked, double-checked, and rechecked and verified, that tells me something is wrong and somebody's hiding something. In Butler County, that number was 588. In other states, by the way, if they would have had numbers like that, they would not have certified the election in the first place. Pennsylvania is by far the most egregious cheating that we have seen in the 2020 election, and yet nothing was done. And all of our numbers out there back this up. So let me get to the bottom of that. The rest of this just tells you where the data comes from. Again, I think I said it already. We have receipts. You can share this with your county commissioners, with any elected officials. This was State Department data. We have the receipts for it. Another thing to note that most people that aren't living in this like we are don't know is that our own House of Representatives brought people on that were private investigators back in November, December of 2020 to look into this. Those investigators filed right-to-know requests with different counties, with different areas, and those are the receipts for a lot of this other information. One specifically being the Mark Zuckerberg money that went into specific areas along our state, Butler County not being one of them. So we'll talk about that when we get to another county. This other notable stat that's down there that we have for most of the counties where it makes sense to put it are the registration anomalies that Captain Seth Keschel goes through. In addition to other folks, there are other data analysts other than Seth Keschel who have gone through this and come up with the exact same figure, which is why I throw it on there. Butler County, for example, had an increase in Democrat registrations of 3.4% between the years of 2016 and 2020, which is very small. But Joe Biden got 30.8% more votes than Hillary Clinton did in 2016. Now think about that. This is why this is alarming. So you can look at registration trends of voters, whether they are new voters registering for the first time or they're switching their party. Butler County only had an increase of 3.4% in their Democratic registrations, which should show you that Joe Biden should have gotten maybe a little bit more votes than Hillary Clinton. That's how you would expect if you're going to follow the trends. And you can go back to, if you've seen Seth Keshel's work, he goes back to 2004 and looks at these registration trends. In every presidential election, it works out except for 2020. And this is where a lot of the anomalies come from. Despite the fact that you would expect Joe Biden to maybe get a few more votes than Hillary Clinton because the Democrat registrations went up very minimally, he got 30.8% more votes than Hillary Clinton. That is another anomaly. It, along with everything else, just tells us we really need to take a deep dive and look at this stuff further. So let me stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to try to get to another county to show you. Let's go back to, actually, yeah, let me try that. I'm going to share the screen again. Chrome tab. There we go. Okay. So if you go to our website, auditthevotepA.com, and you click on this data tab right here, every county comes up. That's how you can get to your individual county. I showed you Butler. Let's go to Westmoreland just to have a little extra fun. I'm going to scroll up and in a little bit. So again, these anomalies are different for every county. Let me go back to this stream to make sure you guys can see this. There we go. Okay. So Westmoreland, you can see that their backfilled voters are way less than Butler. Butler was really high. That number is very high, especially considering that Butler only had a total of 113,305 votes cast for president in 2020. Over 6,000 of them were backfilled voters. That's about a 5% number. Kind of high, I would think. Now, Westmoreland only has 2,731. They also have way more votes than Butler, 204,697 total votes for president in Westmoreland County. Their duplicate registrations are about the same. They had about 10,000 more first-time voters, few more inactive voters, mail-in ballots. The alarming thing as you look down through that list, the most alarming thing about Westmoreland is those removed registrations. Why in the world did they have 9,000 registrations removed in the 2 months after the election? Very, very, very concerning. Westmoreland also experienced a loss in Democrat registrations, whereas Butler had a small uptick. Westmoreland actually had a loss to the tune of 8.7%. Joe Biden, however, still got almost 20% more votes than Hillary Clinton did in 2016. Very strange. No explanation for that whatsoever. Definitely needs looked at. Again, the 9,000 registrations that were removed, you only had 204,000 total votes for president, and you took 9,000 voters off the rolls in those 2 months. Again, that's kind of a weird percentage. What is that? Another 4 or 5%-ish? That's something's going on here, people. Not quite sure what it is. Something funky going on. Anyway, I was trying to make this video short and sweet and to the point, which clearly is not my strength. So... but I got you through a couple of counties. I think that you can do the rest. I mean, I could literally talk for days about this. Maybe that's something I get ideas in my head all the time that I don't follow through with, but maybe that's something that Karen and Jamie and I should do, is kind of a video where we can walk you through county by county, some of the bigger anomalies, because they are worse in some counties than others, and they're different actually all across the state. You would expect, for example, Butler. I think Butler is so strange because I'm going to pull up Allegheny County. I know you guys can't see this, but Allegheny County, that backfilled voter, the ones that were removed, voted in 2020, but weren't on the voter rolls just a few months prior to the election. Allegheny County actually only had 5,419 of those. So they had less backfilled voters than Butler. But we know that Allegheny County, there were more shenanigans in there because of our efforts on the ground and our history of Allegheny County is just kind of known for cheating, as is Philadelphia. But Allegheny County had 8,395 duplicate registrations. That means 8,395 people could have voted more than one time. They also had 94,000 first-time voters. Over 13,000 registrations were moved from their voter rolls in the 2 months after the election. So every county kind of has a different anomaly, which in my opinion is why we're having such a challenge when it comes to figuring out exactly how they performed their shenanigans in 2020, because we're starting to think it was death by 1,000 cuts. There are different anomalies county by county, and the way that we the people fix it is we get involved. Have to start going to some type of meeting, whether it's the commissioners meetings or your Republican committee meetings or something, to get the attention of your elected officials in your backyard. That is how we fix this moving forward. I have very little confidence in the process that the Senate is currently running through, mostly now because it's stalled out in the courts. If you're following it at all, Josh Shapiro has filed lawsuits against the Senate saying that you're obstructing whatever for requesting information that's too personal, and they have no reason to need people's social security numbers or driver's licenses, which I actually kind of agree with, because we already have tons of data that verifies a voter with the same birth date and the same address. Why do you need the social security numbers and the driver's licenses to verify that you had maybe somebody who's registered twice? But anyway, that's their deal. I have very little confidence that that's going to go anywhere. That doesn't mean that all hope is lost. We can work on a county level. We're looking at Pennsylvania very much from a long game, meaning that we didn't get into this situation overnight. We're not going to get out of it overnight. It's going to be a lot of work, a lot of effort. We really have to roll our sleeves up and get involved on a local level to find out exactly what went wrong in our own backyards, fix it in our own backyards, and only then can we expect any real change on the state level. So I have enjoyed this video, and I want to say I've enjoyed everything we've done with Audit the Vote, but that's not true, because it's hard. It's getting hard. But we're going to keep moving forward. Our movement is growing. We are about to launch our billboard campaign. More details on that to follow. We do have a pretty important election coming up in November, the first Tuesday of November. We have school board positions, city council positions, a Supreme Court justice position that's open, other judge seats that are open. Now is definitely not the time to sit at home and go, forget it, it's rigged, there's no point in voting. I understand that people feel that way. I feel that way. You have no idea how frustrating it is to be living in this data on a regular basis for months on end and shoving it down the throats of our elected officials and being told continually either that they don't want to hear it, there's nothing to see here, or worse yet, yeah, we're going to do something, but they're really not going to do anything. I get the frustration. However, if we don't get out and vote, we're quitting. And in my mind, quitting is just not an option. We have to keep going so that we can get more data and we can catch them red-handed. That is my message to everybody. Get out and vote this November. Get with some of your trusted friends and family who you have the same values, whatever those are. Find out who the candidates are, what they stand for, and vote your values. That is the best thing we can do moving forward. Quitting, not an option. When the three of us met with President Trump, one of the last things we asked him was, how do we win in a rigged system? And what do we do from here? And he said, I'll tell you what, keep doing what you're doing and never give up. We'll fix it. We will fix it. We just can't take our hands off the plow. So I've gone way longer than I wanted to go, but I hope this was helpful. And we'll see you guys soon. We'll keep you posted on the billboard campaign with updates. And I hope this was helpful. Reach out to us if you have any questions. Thanks, guys.